I discovered my granddaughter, Chloe, at the edge of the ferry terminal parking lot just as the sun was breaking over the horizon. She looked like a discarded marionette, crumpled against the concrete. Her dark curls were stiff with dried blood, and her left leg was bent in a way that made bile rise in my throat. The biting November wind off the Puget Sound whipped through my coat as I fell to my knees. My arthritic hands trembled as I sought a pulse. "Chloe, sweetheart, it's Gran. Stay here." Her eyelids fluttered, revealing pupils that were glassy and swimming. Her lips barely formed the words, lost under the screech of seagulls and the lap of the tide. I pressed my ear to her mouth. "Gran, it was Julian," she wheezed. "He said, we don't fit in his world. The Thornes, they bought him." Her eyes rolled back, and she went dead weight in my arms. I screamed until my voice cracked. A dock worker heard me and dialed emergency services. As the ambulance lights flashed against the gray morning mist, I held my granddaughter's freezing hand and felt something inside me snap. It didn't break, it calcified. It turned into iron. My name is Margaret Maggie Sullivan. I am 68 years old. For 45 years, I have scrubbed floors and polished silver for the elite of Mercer Island, Washington. I buried a husband and raised 3 children on a housekeeper's wage. I know exactly what it feels like to be furniture to people with old money. But what the Thorne family didn't realize, what they never suspected, is that furniture has ears. Chloe survived the first night. Shattered leg, 3 broken ribs, a fractured skull, and a lacerated spleen. The surgeon told me that if I had found her half an hour later, the hypothermia would have finished what the beating started. My daughter, Sarah, Chloe's mother, flew in from San Francisco. We held a vigil by her bedside at Harborview Medical Center, listening to the rhythmic hiss of the ventilator. The police arrived on day 2. Detective Vance, a man in his 50s with a tired face but sharp eyes. "Mrs. Sullivan, your granddaughter whispered a name before she passed out." "Julian." "Can you elaborate?" "Her husband," I spat the words out. "Julian Thorne. They've been married just over a year." "Thorne?" Vance paused, his pen hovering. "As in Thorne Logistics? The shipping family?" "The very same." Everyone in the Pacific Northwest knew the Thornes. They were industrial royalty. They owned the ports, the warehouses, and half the politicians in Olympia. Julian's grandfather, Silas Thorne, built the empire. His father, Alastair Thorne, now ran the conglomerate from a glass tower in downtown Seattle. "We'll bring him in," Vance said. "Good luck," I muttered. "The Thornes collect lawyers like other people collect stamps." I was right. Within hours, Julian arrived at the hospital flanked by 2 attorneys in Italian suits. They blocked us from seeing him, but I watched him through the glass. He was immaculate, cashmere sweater, perfectly groomed, looking out the window with a practiced expression of distress. It was the look of a man worrying about a delayed flight, not a dying wife. When Chloe woke up 3 days later, the night of the attack was a black hole in her memory. The doctors called it traumatic amnesia. The police found her phone and keys, but no weapon, no DNA. Julian claimed he was at a gala in Bellevue, 20 miles away. His alibi was tight, bought and paid for by witness testimony. Without Chloe's memory, he walked free. But I remembered her whisper. The Thornes bought him. Sarah wanted to take Chloe back to California, far away from the rain and the Thornes. But once Chloe could speak, she refused. "I want to go home, Mom. Julian is my husband." "Gran, you're wrong," she insisted, her voice weak. I was confused. I was in shock. "Julian loves me." It tore me apart. Chloe was 29, a brilliant archivist for the Seattle Art Museum. She had met Julian at a gallery opening. She thought he was different, a rebel against his stuffy heritage. I had been skeptical. You don't spend 4 decades cleaning up after the 1% without learning that wealth rots the soul. On the day Chloe was discharged, I drove to see my sister, Beatrice. Bea is 72 and still lives in the Rainy Valley town we grew up in. Our mother passed away 12 years ago, but she left us something more valuable than money. She left us her legacy of silence. Our mother had been a housekeeper, too, for the Thorne family, starting back in the 1960s. Bea opened the door, wiping flour from her hands. Maggie. I heard about Chloe. Is she safe? Bea, I need the box. Do you remember what Mom told us about the Thorne dynasty? About Silas? Bea went pale. The logbooks. They're in the basement safe. But Maggie, Mom made us promise. We only use them if there's no other way. There is no other way. We went down to the damp basement. Bea unlocked a fireproof safe and pulled out a stack of leather-bound ledgers. 12 of them, covering 30 years. Our mother had been the head housekeeper for Silas Thorne. She had seen the bribes, the affairs, the cover-ups. And she had written it all down. She had documented the accidental drowning of a Union leader in 1974. She had pasted in carbon copies of memos Silas thought he had shredded. She had photos of payoffs to port inspectors and known mobsters. Mom always said the Thornes thought they were gods, Bea whispered. They were, I said, because nobody with the truth had the teeth to bite them. Until now. I spent the next week decoding my mother's cursive while Chloe recovered and Julian played the role of the grieving, confused spouse. The journals painted a picture of a criminal empire built on extortion and blood. But the most chilling part was about Alistair, Julian's father. The journals showed that Silas had taught Alistair everything. Alistair had been present when they decided to burn down a competitor's warehouse. He had learned early that people were disposable assets. And Julian? He was just the latest version of the same product. I remembered a conversation with Chloe months ago. Gran, Alistair wants a prenup. It's aggressive. It feels like they're leasing me, not welcoming me. I realize now, they weren't protecting their assets from her. They were preparing to liquidate her. On a Tuesday, Chloe called me, sobbing. Gran, come over. Julian is at the office. I remember. I sped to their sleek, modern house in Medina. Chloe was sitting on the floor, shaking. It came back in flashes, she said. He called me that night. Said his father wanted to meet at the ferry dock. Private family business. And? They were both there. Alistair told me they had done a background check. He said our family was genetic debris. He said they made a mistake letting Julian marry the help. He offered me $250,000 to annul the marriage and disappear. What did you do? I threw my ring at him. I told him he couldn't buy me. I turned to walk away, and then I heard Alistair say, handle it, Julian. Clean up your mess. Then something hit me from behind. We have to tell Detective Vance. I tried, she cried. His lawyer says I'm hallucinating from the brain injury. They're threatening to sue me for defamation. Gran, they own the city. Pack your bags, I said. You're going to Sarah's. Now. While she packed, I called a man I used to clean for a shark of a lawyer named David Kim. He had grown up poor and hated bullies. David looked at the journals and the photos. Maggie, he said, adjusting his glasses. This is a RICO case. This is 50 years of federal crimes. Wire fraud, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. Can we use it? If we go the traditional route, it takes 5 years. Chloe doesn't have 5 years. Julian knows she remembers. He'll try again. So what do? We make a trade. I have a friend in the Justice Department. We don't aim for a trial. We aim for a surrender. 3 days later, we sat in a conference room in the federal building. Me, David, and Special Agent Miller. Across the table sat Alistair and Julian Thorne, along with an army of suits. Alistair looked bored. Julian looked terrified. Agent Miller didn't blink. She slid a photocopy of a 1978 ledger across the table. It showed a payment to a hitman who killed a rival shipping magnate. Gentlemen, Miller said. We have 12 volumes of this. We have bank records, photos, and handwritten confessions from the late Silas Thorne's private archives. Alistair's lawyer laughed. This is ancient history. Hearsay. We also, Miller continued, have a sworn statement from Chloe Thorne regarding the events of November 8th. She identifies both of you as conspirators in her attempted murder. She's brain damaged, Alistair sneered. Here is the deal, Miller interrupted. I open a federal investigation into Thorne Logistics today. We freeze your assets. We dig up the bodies, literally. Or what? Julian squeaked. Julian pleads guilty to aggravated assault. He serves 15 years, no early release. Alistair, you step down as CEO, pay a $50 million fine for SEC violations, and cooperate with our audit. If you do that, the historical journals stay sealed. The legacy remains intact. You can't be serious, Alistair stood up. If you walk out that door, I spoke up for the first time, I give the journals to the New York Times. By tomorrow morning, the name Thorne will be synonymous with murderer. Alistair looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time, he didn't see a cleaning lady. He saw the executioner. He sat down. He looked at his son. Take the deal, Julian. Dad, take the deal. Or we lose everything. Julian wept. Alistair sighed. It wasn't perfect. Silas Thorne was dead and beyond justice. But the empire was decapitated. Julian went to prison. Alistair was stripped of his power and spent his remaining years in court battles and bankruptcy hearings. Chloe divorced Julian from his cell. She moved to Oregon, started a small vineyard, and found a partner who loves her for her, not her silence. She still has a limp, and she still checks the locks 3 times a night, but she is free. On the anniversary of the attack, B and I took the journals to the University of Washington and donated them to the Special Collections Archive, restricted for 20 years, but safe. People like the Thornes never understand one thing: the staff isn't part of the scenery. We are the audience. And eventually, the audience gets tired of the show. My mother used to say, the difference between power and strength is patience. The powerful take what they want. The strong wait for the check to come due. She waited 40 years. I waited 68. I don't feel guilty. They treated my granddaughter like an accounting error. They forgot that errors can be corrected. I still clean houses occasionally. I like the rhythm of it. I like walking into a mansion, dusting the mantle, and knowing that I am the most dangerous person in the room. Because we, the invisible women, are the ones who hold the keys. We watch. We remember. And when the time is right, we don't just clean the house. We take out the trash.